All right, peace, people. Running a few. Sorry, I was running a couple minutes late. All right, we're just gonna wait for some more people to come into the room. Then we're gonna go ahead and get started on what we're gonna kind of talk about this evening. So we'll give it a minute. Peace, Sister Trina. All right, so we're just gonna give it a minute or two, just till we get some more people in. This way, I ain't gotta repeat myself. All right, just got back from Atlanta. Okay, are you all over the place? Peace, DR. All right, we just gonna give it a minute or two as people start to come in. I apologize for being a couple minutes late. Peace, Sister Akua. All right, we're just gonna wait. I'll run through a couple of quick announcements in a minute, and then we're gonna go ahead and get started. Peace, Sister Myra. I think you said you was coming Saturday, right, Myra? Remind me if you're not. I'm not sure. I can't remember. I did send out a final text today for the event on Saturday, just so we can get a head count. Okay, cool. All right, we'll get another minute. Peace, Brother Duma. All right. Well, we got some people in here. Just to run through a couple quick announcements, as I always do in the beginning. Kind of keep people abreast of what's going on. First and foremost, as you know, today's Tuesday, December 18th. Believe it or not, we don't know where this month is flying, but it's flying. Flying by quick, I might add. So this upcoming Saturday already is the weekend for this month's event, the Ritual of the Holy Death. For those that are coming, it's important we start on time. There's 2 parts to this ritual. The cutoff day will be tomorrow to request an invite, just so we can prepare, have a head count, and know exactly who is coming. I did send a text message out. If you're on the text list, you should have got that a couple hours ago as a reminder. I am aware of some of you that are coming. For those that are traveling, either from out of town or out of state, just contact me when you're here. This way I know that you're actually here. So when you arrive, just let me know. Because the thing is, we don't want to start, the ritual and close the door, and then that would kind of suck ass if you traveled and you couldn't get in or you missed it. I know some people have been emailing me, contacting me. There's a hectic month. Actually, it's been kind of busy since last month, leading up to Thanksgiving, between traveling, holidays, families, a lot going on right now. Things will start to calm down as we go into next month, etc. So, long story short, if you are planning on attending this weekend and you have not requested an invite, tomorrow will be the cutoff day for that. All right. For those that have already contacted me and scheduled readings, I'm doing that up until the 22nd, and then I won't be doing it for a few days due to taking a break again for the holidays. I'll take a break for about 5 days from it. Those that have reached out to me, I've set appointments. Actually, somebody had contacted me today, wanted one for Thursday. The time didn't work out. I don't really have spots right now. Right off the bat, I have limited, just set times over the next couple of days. So if you are interested in a reading or a consultation, you can just email me and I can let you know what times I have from now until Saturday. Yeah, all that information, you can email me at the email, which is in the description box. You'll see it on all the videos, khnum@gmail.com. All right. Other than that, that really covers the basics. And then after this month, we do have already lined up for January and February, kind of what we're going to do for those 2 months. But again, I'll put that out there going into next month. For those that are taking the Saturday sessions, as I said before, we're taking a 2-week break. We'll finish up the last 2 sessions, the last 2 Saturdays in December. And for those that have emailed me about the next session of classes, that's going to start in late March. So once this session is over, take a 2-month break, and we'll resume with the next session in March. I will do 1 session classes because some people have asked about that. I will throw a couple in there in between. Not sure when I'm going to do that, but some people have asked. So I will squeeze that in somewhere. Again, not sure when that's going to be, but I'll figure it out. All right. Anyway, so let's get into kind of tonight's topic. I'm going to cover 3 areas. I covered some of this or pieces of this in scattered videos over the last couple of years. A book that I would highly recommend. I've thrown this book up several times before, Set. It's actually titled Set the Outside. It's weird because they don't have it on the cover. You can't really see it. And it's written by Judith Page and Don Webb. And just to give you a gist of the book, gets an in-depth set and how it evolved through the different dynasties. It kind of breaks the mythology and all of the negative stuff that's portrayed in some of the main Egyptian studies on Set. It'll get into, as far as the history is concerned, which is good to know. It'll kind of smash that whole concept of how, in more recent times, how Set was perceived was changed into, quote unquote, from a religious perspective, something negative. But anyway, you can read that on your own time. The reason why I chose this title, because the light that shines in the darkness, quite simply, is Set. I did a video a while back, well, not super while back. I'm going to say probably about 6 to 8 months ago, maybe longer. I'm not sure. I can't remember. And it was called the devil of your intelligence that's hidden in the mind. There's a section in that book. There's actually a book. I think it's Gerald Massey is the author. You might want to check that out. Reason why that is important, because that's that aspect of our mentality. That's that aspect of our mind. We could call it the intuition. We could call it the inner voice, whatever title you want to give it. That's that communication that we should be listening to on a regular basis. Unfortunately, we don't. Now, this archetype character that you will see, known by many different names in many different spiritual systems. You will hear titles. You will hear in mainstream religion, the devil, Satan. You will hear in the Quran, you'll hear such terms as Iblis, which just means the rebellious one. You will hear Azazel. You will hear Lucifer, right? The question that we have to ask ourselves, and the reason why I'm bringing this up, what are all these names? Is it the same thing? Does it tap into the same thing? Well, the answer to that question is yes and no. I want to be clear on this. Let me explain. When you look at these are attributes or titles, right? Some of those attributes and titles in the very name, it's very important that you take the time to understand, one, the language of some of these titles for this quote unquote archetype, and understand the meaning and what they mean. For an example, Azazel means the one removed, right? We know the story recorded in the so-called Bible, in the book of Genesis and the book of Revelations, the 12th chapter, where it talks about Lucifer, son of the morning star, being quote unquote booted from the heavens, right? along with the 200 fallen angels, right? It mentions these 200 fallen angels, or these Nephilim. You find them also mentioned in the 6th chapter of Genesis and the 4th verse. It says, and when you read in that particular verse, it'll clearly state how the sons of God came into the daughters of men and bore children by them, right? They don't tell you where these Anakim or Nephilim came from, because when you're reading a lot of these stories, it's very important to understand they're taking and extracted from many different stories and cultures that predated it. So it can get a little confusing when you're reading it, because when you're reading, for an example, something in the 6th chapter of Genesis, it's something that's reiterated also in the book of Revelations. You got to understand, when you read that book of confusion, it's not in chronological order, right? When you're reading those first 7 chapters of the book of Genesis, you're basically reading the Gilgamesh epics, and you're basically reading the Sumerian stories of creation. How do you know that to be a fact? Well, again, if you do your history, you will find out when you go during the time of who they call Ezra, when the so-called Israelites came back into Jerusalem and rebuilt Solomon's temple. Remember, they were in captivity in Babylon. And remember, what we know as the Torah, and I'm going to tell you why this is all important and how it ties into Set. When they came back into Jerusalem and rebuilt Solomon's temple, remember, they were in captivity for years in Babylon, and they were highly influenced, quote unquote, by Babylonian culture. That 6-pointed star that people so synonymously attribute to the Jewish faith or Jewish religion, that's a Babylonian star that you see in the temples. That's something you can find on the records of the Anunnaki. It has nothing to do with Judaism. When you're reading those first stories in Genesis, they got their concepts and their ideas and creation when they were in captivity in Babylon, because that's when the Torah was actually compiled, when they came back into Jerusalem. You have to understand and know this history, because you will see the shit that people have been fighting over for years really are mythological stories that really have no validity to it. And that's the fucked up part about it. When you look at this chaos, that's, for an example, that's been going on in the Middle East for years now, for many, many years, there will never be no quote unquote peace in the Middle East, because you got people fighting over something. One, they all claim, and this is where Set the Isolator comes in, but they all claim to be following the same God. They all claim to be descendants of the same fathers, such as Abraham and Moses, be you Christian, Muslim, or Jew, but they all can't get along. That's the fucked up part about it. Then that confusion, or that energy of a pep, because they have no control over it, filters into Christianity. If we look in this country here today, in 2018, how many sects of Christianity exist just alone in this country? Shit, we could be here for a good minute rattling off. As I said before in the past, the reality is Catholicism, right, is the first and original form of Christianity. Anything else that came after it is a sect or a cult. People get pissed when I say that, but the fact of the matter is Christianity, all sects of Christianity branched out after Catholicism. Okay. This is why this is important to understand this, because it kind of puts things into perspective. Because again, alone in this country, you have what? You have Catholics, you have Episcopalians, you have Seventh-day Adventists, Baptists, Jehovah's Witnesses, Pentecostals. Name goes on and on. It's going to be a long fucking line in heaven, I can tell you that. Because the bottom line is you can't find any of them words verbatim anywhere in the Bible, right? And I'm bringing all this up because when people come at us on this path that we're confused, they're giving or attributing themselves titles that are nowhere to be found. The first and only place you find the word Christian in the Bible is in the book of Acts, 26th chapter, right? And it was given as a mockery to the so-called disciples or apostles. So they were first called Christians in Antioch. So bottom line is this: Christ could have never called himself a Christian. The word Christ didn't even exist. That's a Greek term that comes from the word Christos, right? Again, understand the etymology of the words, because the trick is in the etymology of the words. They throw these things at us to confuse us. Now, here's another trick. If you look in your New Testament, any place where you see the word God in English, I don't give a fuck what translation you're reading. All you got to do is go into a Ryrie Blue Study Bible that breaks it down into the Greek and the Hebrew. Any place you see God in the New Testament, the Greek word they use is theos. And I've mentioned this before. Why is that important? Well, let me tell you why that's important. The word theos is the origin of the English word that we use for theory, correct? So what is a theory? What do we all know as a theory? A theory is basically speculation, educated guesses. It's just what it is. It's a theory. So they're using the Greek name theos. So they're literally telling you that their God is just a theory. It's not a reality. It's a theos. Now, there's another trick because people that call themselves atheists, right? In that word atheist, you have the word theos. When you break it down, because atheist is a Greek word. So when you say you're an atheist, you have a theory. Even if you say, quote unquote, God does not exist, but you have a theory about the creator. There's tricks in all of this shit because when you're looking at it on the surface, whether you say God, Theos, Yahweh, Jehovah, Yahuwah, Elohim, right? They're telling you it all means the same thing, but it doesn't. The reason why it doesn't, because nobody takes the time to look at the words. For an example, Jehovah is a poor translation of the breakdown of the Hebrew word Yahuwah, right? Yahuwah means, oh, he who he is, right? Which is poorly translated to Yahweh. Yah meaning good, way meaning bad. So they're showing you the dual nature, quote unquote, of God, a good and a bad side. Now I'm gonna take it into the Set and Horus in a second. I'm gonna tell you why I'm telling you all this. Yah and way, right? I'm gonna bring that back up when I show you something dealing with Set and Heru. These fuckers been known what they've been doing for years, but most people are too stupid to see it because they don't pay attention. Right? So they have all these different terminologies and they tell you it means the same thing, and it doesn't. It's important that you understand that, right? They have all these different breakdowns of all these different words, right? Poor translations, except because it creates confusion. Just like when you hear the terms Lucifer, they try to play this trick that it's all the same thing. Lucifer, Satan, the devil, Azazel, Samael. Question we have to ask ourselves on this path, is this the same thing? No, because this represents different attributes of this deity we call Set. When we take it back to the origin of Set, the real Prince of Darkness, right? And we remove the religion from it, that is that light that shines in the darkness, and the darkness comprehended the not. For those that travel, understand what that statement really means, not how the Christians will falsely say that light that shines in the darkness was the light of Christ. That's their interpretation of it because they don't go back again into the etymology of the languages. That light that shines in the darkness, that hidden intelligence that shines in the darkness is Set. That story, when it talks about Iblis, the act of rebellion, and then quote unquote being cast down to earth, that really represents the story when you actually woke the fuck up and you decided that you didn't want to be a slave anymore, right? This is what this story represents. Don't get caught up in the literal aspect of it because this story can be found in cultures that predate Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. So it takes on different forms. Then it goes from Iblis when it's reflecting the moment you woke up and decided to rebel against the norm, to rebel against being conforming or agreeing to everything. It was the point where we woke up and said, look, I'm just as equal on the same level as all these other gods and goddesses. Now, to show you that there was competition, they fuck up in their own Bible where they use terms in the Old Testament or the Torah, which is the first 5 books of the Old Testament, where they say shit like God is a jealous God. How can God, quote unquote, feel the emotions of jealousy and be a pure God? Think about this for a minute, okay? Then, there's statements as, I am the Lord your God, have no other gods before me. So somebody is now fearing that there's other competition out there from other gods. This is not a confident or 100% certain sure God. I'm bringing these up to show you there's the human element there. All of this was started or created by the time when we came to the point or came to the realization mentally when we woke the fuck up. That's what this story really represents. That's what's been going on. This awakening has been continuous for years. And now, as you see in 2018, it's a different energy in the air. There's different shit going on. And I'm not talking about this fake. We also have now another marketed brand of consciousness that exists out there. And I want to be clear on this. It's quote unquote, and again, it's not to knock, but I gotta keep it real. It's quote unquote called the conscious community, right? Everybody likes to be fucking conscious now, right? This is the trendy and fad thing. And that's becoming a religion too. All right. It's becoming a religion too, because it's taking us back into that same mindset, that same mentality. It's not opening us up and connecting us to everything we need to be connected with. What do I mean? Because it focuses exclusively on certain aspects. So what do I mean? When you're part of this so-called conscious circle, what tends to happen is you become exclusive to something Afrocentric. What do I mean? Ifa, you got your Alafia, your Ashe people, or you're strictly Kemetic, right? And the funny thing is, in both of those, let's use Ifa and let's use quote unquote Kemetic studies. All right. The funny thing about both of them is there's a hardcore element of intense black magic in both of them that's rarely ever built upon or talked upon. You hear all the Hoteppers building on ancient Egypt, but they don't really break down the core and essence of the coming forth by day, which people call the Egyptian Book of the Dead, the pyramid text, the funeral text, not explaining that these are actually rituals, spells, and magical practices that were carried out. Some look at the shit like a Bible. The main thing you hear is, the negative confessions and how, they took the negative confessions from the Book of the Dead, and that's how they came up with the 10 Commandments. Well, there's similarities there. They did graph, but there's more to the Book of the Dead than the negative confession. There's 247 negative confessions, right? And there's 613 commandments in the Bible, not 10. That leads to a whole nother story. There's all symbology behind that. You take the 6 and the 3, the 9, right? And you add what? 1, you get 10. Really, it starts over. It's really actually 9. Number of the beast mentioned in Revelation is 666, right? But we know that's nothing but an inverted 9. What I'm saying is there's all fuckery in their symbolicisms, because that devil in the hidden intelligence, or that adversary, remember when you're saying that word devil, you're just saying the word adversary, and that has root in what word? Adverse. When you're adverse to something, you're a nonconformist. You have your own opinion. We call it the isolated consciousness of Set, being an independent thinker, a free thinker, not going along with shit because everybody else is going. Let's be real. Most people conform, all right? They conform to whatever's hip. They conform to whatever everybody else is doing. They conform to whatever's trendy. Or some people conform due to pressure. What pressure? Family pressure, peer pressure, social pressure, afraid to really express themselves because there's a false image they've been programmed with from day one that they must upkeep to keep people happy. See, that deals with that mindset prior to the rebellion. Now, there's a lot of stuff I'm kind of throwing out here that you need to put into perspective in quote unquote in some of these stories, because they all tell a personal story and how it relates to yourself. And I've always said, and those for an example that took the first session of my classes back in the summertime, I did a whole session on this if you took that class. And we walked through all of that shit. We started from Genesis, went all the way to Revelations, and we went through all 114 chapters of the Quran to show you who, quote unquote, is the real deity or God over that so-called Bible, right? The problem is people are confused. I don't care if you're a Bible thumper. I don't care if you're a Hotepper. The point is nobody's tapping into that light in the darkness or that isolated consciousness, which is Set. They're being misled in different ways, because even when you look at the Hoteppers, there's still a lot of subliminal monotheism going on in them practices, right? Some people still look at the ancestors as some spooky ass people that you're supposed to pray to, right? I prayed to my ancestors. No, you don't pray. You honor and rever your ancestors. You communicate with your ancestors. One, because you are them and they are you. The blood that runs through your veins is the blood that runs through their veins. So you can't worship something that is you, right? So what I'm saying is there's still that worship mode, even in conscious circles. It might be quote unquote disguised a little better. It might be a little more subliminal, but I still see motherfuckers, bowing and groveling in front of statues and, doing this shit, putting their hands up. And it's still a form of monotheistic prayer. The question is, who and what are you praying to? Who are you talking to? You understand? These are the things we have to, what gets you away from that is this light that shines in the darkness, which is set, right? I also talked about a while back in a video, the steads and the rewards of work on this path. You hear me use that term all the time. It's work. You must do the work. You must put in the work. Well, that's a term being used for carrying out your rituals, doing your regular meditations, doing whatever work it is you need to do to yourself to make those improvements you need so you can continue to evolve and to grow spiritually. It's a constant process. It's not, I'm going to do it when I feel it. I'm going to do it when it's convenient for me. Unfortunately, if it was that fucking easy, half of us wouldn't even be in situations we're in as we sit here and speak right now. This is consistent work that must be done on a daily basis. When we say it's a path of self-mastery, that means you have to lay out a system, a method that's going to work for you. The problem is where people fucking fail, fall off, or don't become successful, they're looking for somebody else to give them a blueprint and go, poof, here it is, just follow this. You follow this, you're good. But the problem is you can't take one blueprint and think that's going to customize and fit to everybody's needs, because it don't. Why? Because everybody's got different situations and scenarios, right? Everybody's got different problems going on in their life. Everybody's got different things they need to work on. Everybody's got different schedules, different work life, different careers. So there's not one suitable path, time frame, system that's going to work for an individual. The difference with this path, when we say it's a path to self-mastery and you being the god or goddess of this path, you got to sit down and take the time and energy to lay out a plan that's going to work for you. See, that's what makes this a little different than anything else. So it's not, I'm going to join some fucking group and be a part of the group and follow what the guru says or what the elders and the leaders say and all that shit. No, that's not how this works. All right. Now I want to clear something else up because I still get a lot of emails about this since we're on this subject. Praying, deities, is it external or is it not? Let me clarify this. I want to make this clear. Please listen to this, people, because I think this gets lost in the shuffle. And what do I mean? When we're talking about the 7 Hermetic principles of Tahuti, right? And you always hear me say, when I say we, when we're discussing it as a group, but when you always hear me talking about all is mental is all the first principle of mentalism, right? I want to make this clear. It all has its point and origin in the mind, right? When we say nothing happens outside the self, some people get a little bit confused because they say, so what if I'm doing a ritual or working with Sekhmet or Kali, right? And I'm doing this work in this ritual and I have this experience with Kali. It could also be a spirit guide or an ancestral being or ancestral spirit that's connected to you by blood. And in this experience, I'm seeing an image or I'm interacting with this or I'm hearing a voice or communication. It's obviously creating the visual that something is taking place outside of myself. Well, the question is it? All right. Yes, it can create the appearance that it is. Yes, you can work with certain deities and see images of them, no doubt. All this is true. Yes, you can even have a vivid description in that experience, what they look like. True indeed. Yes, you can even hear the voices of these deities, archetypes, or ancestral spirits. Yes, that is true. But here's the thing you need to really consider to truly understand it. Let's start first with the image. So let's say you're doing a mantra ritual with Kali, right? And as you're doing this mantra ritual and the vibration and the frequency and the unison and the harmony of the mantra you start to tap in. When you start to tap in and the vibration and frequencies speed up, the tones start to line up, things start to connect. The mind starts to go to a whole different place. This is a reality if you do mantra magic or if you use mantras, all right? When the mind starts to open up, you unlock all those things that have been put in there from your very first point of origin of existence physically into this universe, from the moment you came out your mama's womb. And everything you've absorbed and stored, because remember, the subconscious is literally like a computer. It stores these images, information, and things you've been told, whether you're conscious of it or not. It's the same thing if you sit and watch a movie. There's an X amount of images that go across that screen in a matter of a minute that get stamped in your mind that you're not aware of. Some you are, some you're not. And this is why you could watch horror movies when you were younger and have bad dreams, because it stores those images in there. All right, I'm trying to show you how this works because it's important to understand this when you're doing work, because people still confused with it. It still is coming from the mind, because if you see an image of a deity, I guarantee you, if we got a bunch of people in a room together that worked with Kali and had some experience with Kali, I don't think everybody would describe what they saw exactly the same way. Why is that? Because how you manifest it is how you see it. So it's not that you aren't having an experience and seeing something that's appearing to be external. You still tapped into the mental reservoir and manifested that image based on what's been stored there, what you put there and what's also been programmed there. But you still manifested and created that image, and it had its point of origin in the mind. So it still validates the first principle. Everything is mentalism, because when you go into a ritual and you're doing a work with a deity or archetype and you want so bad to tap into that energy and have that experience, you are self-creating it, okay? You can open up certain aspects of your psyche to have that experience. So it doesn't negate it. I think people, some, not all, I'm not talking about, I'm saying some people I think get confused because they say, well, I had an experience. I saw I was at my ancestral altar and I was, calling upon the name of my ancestors, and my great grandmother or my grandmother appeared in front of me. She did. I must say, she did. But you opened a part of your psyche to see that. You manifested that, because if we look at where is the chakra, the two key chakras that need to be opened up to create this awareness, right? You have the brow, the third eye chakra, the pineal, and the crown chakra, right? The crown chakra, when opened up. Now, I want to make this clear, because there's so many motherfuckers out here that think their crown chakra is open. My pineal is flowing, my crown chakra is open, and half of these motherfuckers ain't rooted in their root chakra or their sacral chakra, right? Everybody immediately goes to the pineal and the crown, like their shit is vibrant. Let me tell you something. We all have a lot of work to do in that area, because if you were so grounded and rooted in your root chakra, you wouldn't have half of the problems you do in your life. The root chakra, being grounded and connected with the earth, deals with materialism to an extent, not to the point where it controls you. Having the materialistic aspect of things in order before you can go to, quote unquote, those higher spiritual planes or chakras, whatever the fuck you want to call it. But what tends to happen is when the pineal is activated, or when your pineal gland is functioning and it's not calcified to the point where it's not open to be receptive to these messages, which in turn activates the crown, right? The crown is when that crown opens, this is what gives you the ability to tap in, quote unquote, to the full capacity of your subjective realm / mental reservoir, if that's what you want to call it, to make you happy, that creates these experiences. These are how these energies, right? Because you have many different manifestations or appearances through different cultures of these deities. They just took on different names, different titles. But once you're able to open yourself up to have that experience, then you have, quote unquote, what some would call the incarnation or personal experience with or connection with that energy or frequency. Remember, at the end of the day, even when you go up into those Hermetic principles, the doctrine of vibration and frequency, is important to understand that. So having said all that, I'm saying that to say, know what perspective to put that in when we say all is mental, mental is all. What does that mean? It all has its point of origin in the mind. You create these things. The point of origin still starts with you. That's what it means to be a god or goddess. You don't look outside yourself for these point of origin of these things. You don't look to some spook god that resides in the sky for the answers to these things. You don't pray to nothingness because you get no response. See, the trick from day one is to take you away, you understand, from this character that they build up called the devil, Satan, the adversary, and paint this picture. They did it to Set. Even when you go into the pre-dynastic Egyptians, as I said before, before Set was demonized after the 22nd dynasty of Egypt. Prior to that, he was one of the highest deity in ancient Egypt. He was the one that carried the souls into the afterlife. That role was switched when the Osirian cult took over later and demonized Set, because the cult of Set, those that were in tune with the cult or the energy of Set, as they called it, they refused to conform to what was going on in ancient Egypt at that time, because they were trying to basically conform the masses to a system literally of monotheism. Even go back during the times of Akhenaten, who's really responsible for what we know as Christianity today, right? Sound familiar? Same shit going on today. Well, basically, the cult of Set refused. They refused to conform. They were basically like, look, we're cool. You do your thing, we're going to do us. That's literally, if you go back and look at their history. And they didn't like that. So because they didn't like that and they didn't agree to join them and conform, the majority took it upon themselves to demonize Set and the cult of Set. So we've been tricked. Now that filters into modern day religion, because same thing. They took this same character, called him the devil, but created all of this, fucked up energy and all of these different stories and put all this pure evil that they self-created via monotheism. They did the same thing to confuse you, the student, from what direction you should be looking, because everything that they told you not to look towards, everything they told you to stay away from, everything they've told you from day one that is evil, don't fuck with that, don't read that, don't touch it, is because they were afraid you would find out the truth. And then some of the ignorant that tell you that, they just ignorant because they've been programmed themselves. Anybody I've learned this over the years, and I've said this many times over the years in videos, I found out everything I was told to stay away from day one was the shit I should have gravitated towards to and looked into back then. It didn't happen, so be it. But the point is, it's a different damn time now. I found out if any motherfucker tells you don't read that or try to tell you what you should not study and read, they got an agenda. Trust me when I tell you. They got an agenda, because they either know something that you might find out there that they don't want you to find out, or they're just telling you out of straight ignorance because they've been programmed with straight ignorance, right? These are the things we need to, when I say on this path, you must, reteach or be retaught. You must reprogram the subconscious mind. Think about how much years of this programming we have embedded in us. Some of us think we're not, oh no, I'm past all that. You might think you're past all of it on the surface, and some of it you are, but I guarantee you there's a lot subconsciously that you're not aware of. There's a lot of trauma that you've been impacted with that still filters over into your practice on this path, and is one of the many explanations or reasons why you struggle or don't get results, because you've brought some of that trauma, whether you're aware of it or not, and it's still trapped in here. You haven't addressed it. It could be your insecurities. It could be your fears. It could be how you put perspective in it. Because, like I said before, one thing I like to do when I hear people say I'm a god or I'm a goddess, right? I love hearing that shit. And you've heard me say this many times. I always like to ask that individual, what is your definition of being a god if you're a male, or being a goddess if you're a female? And I always get the generic bullshit that they say in all the conscious circles. I'm the mother goddess and blah 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 blah. And then you hear about the original black man is God, and we're descendants of the blah 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 blah. That's all surface bullshit. That's not what it means. One, being a god or a goddess, is showing and proven by your works. And when I say a god or a goddess, I want to make this clear. Not the monotheistic definition of what a god is. Because if you think it's some spooky being that sits on the clouds and snaps his fingers, and that's all fucking... You might as well believe in Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, or you might as well believe in Santa Claus. Santa Claus actually has more power, in essence, this time of year. Think about it. Santa Claus is more powerful, quote unquote, than their monotheistic God, because you got to see everybody now this time of year have stickers on their car, keep Christ in Christmas. So some science in that Santa Claus shit. You just ain't seeing it. But anyway, that was a little joke. Anyway, my whole point being is, okay, when you really look at it closely and you're really paying attention to what's going on here, you will find out, as I said a couple of minutes ago, whatever you were told to stay away from, all right, was what you really need to look into. Okay? Because when people hear some of the terminology we're talking about, they run in fear. When I say they run in fear, again, I'm not talking to those of you that are in here now that are on this past study. I'm speaking in general to people that get spooked out. Because when you remove the religious shit from it, even on this path, because I've found, I'm going to keep it 100 with you. There's a lot of religious ass motherfuckers on this path, right? I don't consider real left-hand path of self-mastery, all those motherfuckers that walk around that claim to be Satanists, talking about hail Satan and all that shit. To me, they can be more religious than Christians, Muslims, or Jews. Okay? That's why I did some videos a little while back on Luciferianism, the mindset and what it represents. You don't have to declare officially to be a Luciferian. I brought the principles of the mindset and what Luciferian principles represent because it represents the mindset of a god or a goddess. That's the reality when you understand what real Luciferianism is. It represents the mindset of a god and a goddess. What does that mean? An individual that makes their own choices, creates their own path, doesn't worship anything or bow down or grovel to anything outside of themselves, understands that he or she is at the center and in control of their universe at all times, right? And here's the tough part that some people don't want to do, unfortunately. They take responsibility for his or her actions, meaning they take credit for their successes, but here's the hard part. But they also take responsibility and credit for their failures. See, we don't blame nobody on this path for shit we fuck up on or can't do. See, when you're on those other paths, you got a crutch or an excuse. You have something external to blame, something or somebody. You always find out people that bitch, whine, and complain and don't do shit in life, ain't successful. They're always bitching and complaining about something or somebody did them wrong. It kills me. Somebody did them wrong. Somebody's out to get me. I failed because such and such had it out for me. I got set up. Did you ever stop and think, if you're that person that's always constantly complaining, if you're the person always screaming conspiracy theory, if you're the person that's always crying and complaining, did you ever stop and think, just maybe, you might be the point of origin of your own problem? Most people don't do that. I've said this before. I deal with so many different clients when it comes to spiritual consultations and readings, and most of them have, real life problems. But the difference, if you've worked with me and you know this, I'm going to come at you 100% with reality, okay? I'm going to come at you with reality. If you've worked with me, you know I paint a vivid and reality-based picture. Because they all come, it's always majority, not all, majority of people always, if it's something that happened in their job or their career or their personal relationship or their family relations or something with money or something, most of them never take responsibility for the wrongdoing. It's always somebody else did something. That's not the reality. First and foremost, when you understand the laws of the universe, right? And the multiverses, if you want to say, or you understand the 7 Hermetic principles, right? You're where you are supposed to be because that's where you are. I know that sounds like a bunch of jargon. Meaning the choices you make have an effect and a reflection on what's going to come your way, right? Cause and effect is what karma really is. Let's remove the spooky shit. Let's just throw that out the window. Because people got this religious concept of karma. Oh, I gotta be careful what I do. I gotta be careful what I say. If I do that, something wicked and bad's gonna come back upon me. That's fucking religion. That's just like how religion presents this false concept. You have free will. Nothing is fucking free. Let's establish that. There's no such thing. Nothing is free. Get that out of your mind. Because that was one of the biggest lies that religious dogma teaches, that you have free will. They tell you, yeah, you're free to do whatever the fuck you want, right? But in the end, if you don't, it doesn't line up with the religious ideology, you're going to go to this place called hell and burn eternally. That's what they tell you. So it's not free. There's consequences with those choices. Well, let's remove that bullshit out the way. Let's remove the religious ideology and definitions. And let's toss that to the curb. Let's now apply common sense to ourselves. All right, let's use something basic, real simple, not complicated. Trust me when I tell you. Say I got a couple $100 in my pocket and I'm out at the mall, right? Let me just show you how simple. See, if we simplify things, it removes the spookism, the fears, and the insecurities. This is how, quote unquote, a Luciferian, somebody on the left-hand path to self-mastery, everything. Say I'm out at the mall. I'm going to use a very simple analogy. I got a couple $100 in my pocket. Some of us have no control over our impulses, right? At all. You have some people that are called impulse buyers, right? They just get an impulse to buy something, they get it. Well, let's just say you're one of those people, right? Let me show you how cause and effect, real karma works. All right. And you're out and about and you see something, your impulses kick in and you want to get it so bad, right? To the point where it's blocking out your reasoning, your common sense thinking is being completely blocked, right? 2 days from now, you might have a bill due, your mortgage, your rent, a car payment. I'm just saying, I'm just creating a scenario. You know that if you go spend money technically that you don't really have, there's going to be an effect to that. Follow me with this, real simple. But your impulses kick in. You're just like, fuck it, I got to have it. To the point you're not even thinking about 2-3 days from now when that bill is due, that you might have a problem paying that bill. Okay? So you go ahead and buy that. You're excited. You acted on your impulse. Let's say it was a piece of jewelry or some electronic gadget, whatever. You're in fucking la la land for 2 days. You're loving it. You got something that you desire. Cool. 3 days later, that bill is due. Now the thrill and the impulse of that shit is gone. You didn't realize the choice you made kind of fucked you up because now you got to pull from other places or figure out how you're going to pay this bill. That's all karma is. Remove the spookism out of it, people. Remove all that religious shit. Karma is created by you. You are the point of origin of that cause and effect. The cause, the choices you make. The effect, the good or bad, and I only say good or bad in the sense of how it's going to affect your personal situation. It's that simple. So let's stop spooking this shit the fuck out. Okay? When you put it into its proper perspective. Now, all of this way of thinking is that light that shines in the darkness set. The isolated consciousness is what taps into or connects you to this mentality or way of thinking. This is what it means to be a god or a goddess, right? That's what I meant when I say you must show, improve, and demonstrate by your actions and your work, not just saying it, not because you got the part down, you look it, you got the nice natural, you got the beads and shit on, and you got the Flavor Flav ankh on and all that shit. Yeah, you look it, man, spiritual, hotep, hotep, hotep. But here ain't right, and here ain't right. It's not there. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah, you got the hustle going on the outside. It's just not there. It's that simple. That's the problem. We got a lot of that shit going on today, unfortunately. And look, if you take it personal, sorry. I ain't knocking anything or anybody specifically. I had to call for what it is. Just like there's people that don't agree with this path. They'll be quick to attack this path. But as soon as I respond, they get all, their panties get all in a knot. Their underwears get all
fucking tied up and they get all hot in the collar. Well, as I said before, if you don't agree with this path, it's as simple as just don't fucking, one, don't tune into the channel here. Two, don't study or read anything on it, because I know if I don't want anything to do with anything, or I'm not interested in something, I just don't fuck with it. I'm not gonna waste my time and energy. You know, like for an example, I never understood why people, I see it in all different chat rooms. Let me give you an example. It was a clip that came up like 3 days ago. Let me show you the ignorance of some fucking people. I know they had some big conference a couple of days ago in the conscious community. I know Dr. Phil Valentine was part of that, right? Well, anyway, I see a thing pop up in my YouTube notification on Sonetta TV, and he was shooting a clip of Dr. Phil Valentine speaking. Now, I've had Dr. Phil Valentine on when we had the radio show, Awaken Universal Minds. I had him on the show a couple of times. Now, I've made it clear, I don't agree with everything he teaches, but there's a lot of things I do agree with. I do have respect for him because he's an elder. Don't mean I got to agree with everything that he teaches, because I don't agree with everything he teaches. But let me show the ignorance of people. As I'm going through the chat, this is the thing that fucking kills me. Of course, you got those, pro-black conscious coons, I like to call them, because that's what they are. Still talking the same shit that they've been talking about for years ago. Dr. Phil, why are we listening to this white man? Everything is black and white. And obviously this is some person that's insecure in their blackness, right? I want to make this clear. This is somebody that's insecure in their blackness because they have a definition. And mind you, this is somebody sitting behind a keyboard that ain't doing shit. That's the other thing that kills me. What the fuck are you doing? Whether you like, agree, or you're not, whether you like or agree, or you're not comfortable with his complexion and how he looks, turn the fucking channel off. I'll get that bullshit here once in a while. I'm not interested. I couldn't care less. I'm not here. It's fucked up how one individual thinks, the old saying, one monkey don't stop the show. Well, that's pretty much what it is. Regardless if you like Dr. Phil Valentine or not, what the fuck are you doing? Ask yourself that. Because the bottom line is, again, and I'm saying this to say I don't agree with everything it teaches, but I will say the man is actually doing something, been doing something for years. So when somebody talks shit like that, first thing I say is, before you start pointing fingers at somebody, I'm going to point the finger right back at you. Before you criticize, what the fuck are you doing? That's all I want to know. Show and prove by your works. This is why, again, this reason why I'm bringing all this up, because this ties into the concept. What does it mean to really be a god or a goddess? What work are you doing? Before you start talking shit, and again, it's not a matter of, look, we all are not going to like every doctrine that's out there. We're all not going to agree with every teacher, scholar, elder. You know what? That's called life, people. But remember, one of the Luciferian points of power, we can agree to disagree. Let's say, as a Luciferian, from a Luciferian mindset, we can say, look, I hear what you're saying. I don't agree with it. You're entitled to express that. You're entitled to share that information, but I'm also entitled not to agree with it. And in some of my conversations in the past I've had with Dr. Valentine, I make that clear. Shit, I was close with Dr. Delbert Blair especially towards the end portion of his life when he got sick before he died. And I would have a lot of private conversations with him, and I would be honest with him. There's a lot of things that he taught that I didn't agree. And there's a lot of things that I would build with him that he didn't agree with. But guess what? We were still able to build, and we were able to agree. The old saying, agree to disagree, right? But it just, as I'm watching this in the chat room, I'm like, look at these motherfuckers sitting, hiding behind a computer, not showing themselves. Look, when you put yourself out in the open like this, like I'm doing now, like other people do, you put yourself out there to be scrutinized. But it's very easy for the people that are doing the scrutiny to sit behind and hide behind a keyboard. But some of these motherfuckers don't even have an avatar with their real photo on it, calling themselves Ankh Hotep 7. It's like, who the fuck is that? You know what I mean? Don't even use their real names. But the point is, that's what it means. All those different elements. I'm not saying you got to explain it that way. of being quote unquote a god or a goddess, that's how it connects or relates to this path of self-mastery. We don't conform. We don't follow what everybody else is doing. And when people ask me what I should or should not be doing, do what you need to do that feels right to you. Right? You do what you need to do that makes you feel. Because if you got to be forced to do something, or you feel like you're being forced to do something, or you gotta really, it's a struggle for you to get motivated to do something, then that's not what you should be doing. That's the answer. You're doing the wrong thing. And I always tell people that. Stop looking for this fall. People think that some fucking spook god's gonna come out of the sky and hand you some manual on how to do everything right. That's just not the reality. That's not what this path is about. Look, nobody said life was easy. Life is hard. I'm gonna keep it 100 with you. As you get older, you think it gets easier as you get older. It don't. It gets harder. That's why I always say, if I could go back in fucking time and be a young kid and not have to deal with all this old people rhetoric and bullshit, because as you get older, your innocence, your pure innocence is snatched away from you. Think about this. Most psychologists will tell you, this is a reality, a fact. Go look this up. Most psychologists will tell you a child doesn't develop their imagination fully until they're 7 years old. Then from the time of 7 on up is when they start to develop their personality via their imagination, what they've been pumped up with. When I say pure innocence, focus on this. Here's the reality. I don't give a fuck what even you could take a fucking skinhead, you could take a black militant, black Muslim, you could take a conscious person, you could take a Buddhist, you could take all these different ethnicities, black, Latino, Chinese, white, whatever you want. If you took kids 2, 3, 4 years old and put them on a playground together, they don't see race, they don't see color. And I'm not saying this to sound fluffy. This is a reality because that pure innocence still exists there. They haven't been programmed until an adult comes to them and teaches them that hate and teaches them that racism and that separation. Because how many of us have seen that? You've been out and about. We've all been out and about somewhere. It could be fucking Chuck E. Cheese, some kid's place, a park, where you see kids of all different ethnicities playing together because they don't see that, how we view it as adults as we got older and what ideologies we were programmed with. You understand? They don't see that shit. Okay? The reality is when that innocence is snatched from us, and I say that in a good way, not a vain innocence. That's when you were at in your purest mind state, right? You always see that thing when we were kids, the little children come to Jesus, right? We all seen that, right? We all seen those pictures like little kids, sitting on Jesus's lap and Jesus. There was a song back in the day in church, right? Jesus loves the little children. We probably remember that song. There's a science in that shit, people. The reason why is because it was symbolic. The reason why he connected with them then more than the adults, because their minds weren't corrupt. Well, look at you at one point. You were an innocent child that used to think clearly at one point. You weren't, your way of thinking wasn't influenced by what people were feeding you. Because if you sit down to a child at a certain age and you try to teach them hate, they can't grasp it until they get older. And you'd have to keep pounding them with it. And then, of course, eventually they're going to conform because the adults are constantly pounding them with it. Again, I'm saying this to say this all connects to that light that shines in the darkness being set. Because that light that shines in the darkness set is the only way we're going to start thinking right. I don't give a fuck what anybody says. When we acknowledge what set represents and what it represents in us, that's when the transformation and the change actually starts to take place, people. It actually really starts to happen. But it starts, one, with separation, making the changes necessary. You got to do everything different. You have to separate yourself from all of that shit. As soon as you start that process, and again, it's not. Let me make this clear. It's not something that's going to happen in a day, 2 days, a week, months. This could take years of work, people. Because remember, you got years of deprogramming you need to do. Because remember, I said it started as soon as you came out your mother's womb, right? It started when you got of age, when you started to become aware, is when they really started pounding you with the bullshit. So all of that, you must be reprogrammed by yourself, and you must reteach yourself. And part of how do you reteach yourself? How do you reprogram? You must go back and reevaluate all of the shit that you were taught and learned in those systems. And when I mean reevaluate it, now you must look at it for what it is. Not one, for what they told you it was, not two, for what you thought it was. You must look at it for what it is. That's the reality. All right. All right. So, all right. I think I went for I think that's enough. In a minute, I'm going to go to the chat. I'm going to start at the top. Hopefully this sparked, and it should have sparked some questions, some comments, stuff you want to address. That's what I'm looking to see. So I'll go up and check. But again, this ties in everything. This ties and connects everything. And let me be clear on this, just so we're all on the same page here. It all branches. Okay. All right. You could see different videos, topics, subjects. On whatever you see, it could be the Holy Death, it could be Hoodoo Voodoo, it could be any of the various topics you see. It all connects because all of those evolve or come from what we call the gift of Set, right? You hear that term. What is the gift of Set? It's all these things that we're talking about. It starts first and foremost with a way of thinking. And again, if you remember a video I did a few months back, you must be a critical thinker to be on this path. If you're not a critical thinker, you're going to struggle on this path. I'm going to tell you that shit right now. That's first and foremost. If somebody, what's one of the key skills I must have to be successful doing this, right? Well, I'm going to throw that at you right from the get-go. You must be a critical thinker. What does the word critical mean, right? You hear the word criticism in there, right? But constructive criticism is what a critical thinker uses. Not just, criticism for naught, but constructive critic. You must be critical and analytical of everything that you do. Everything that you're told, everything that somebody presents, it's up to you to be critical of it. Again, for your own sake, not for anybody else. For your own sake, right? For your own path, to come to the realization of your own truth, not somebody else's truth, not because everybody else is doing it. Let me do it. Let me join the fucking club. Let me get down with what everybody's getting down with because I just want to be hip and cool and trendy. No, it's not. That's not what it means. All right. Anyway, all right. So I'm going to scroll up. If you just type a comment and be patient, it's not that I'm skipping you. I will scroll back down. So I expect to see some questions. I know you gotta have some questions on this stuff here. Or if you got a question in general, throw it in there. That's what this is for now. Because as I said before, I'm if you haven't been on in the last couple of weeks, I'm going back to doing these videos the old way. I'm not reading from a book. That shit is redundant. I ain't doing that shit no more. We need to keep the flow and the energy and the purpose of this is to get some growth out of it. You can read the books in your own time. I was doing that for a while because I figured if I took segments and fragments from certain, books and things of that nature, it seemed to be at that time, a good thing to do. But then I kind of realized it started to become redundant, kill the flow and the energy. So it's easy for you guys to do that in your own time. I'm not going to really be doing that no more. So what questions you got? What's on your mind? I'm here now. I know people email questions, then they get in here and they don't ask the questions. All right. All right, so let's see what we got. All right, so first and foremost, I know some of you came in earlier. I greeted you. If I didn't greet you personally, peace, greetings, hotep, assalamu ham and bacon, shalom doom doom, whatever greeting you need, get you happy, peace. Again, real quick reminder, since we got most people in here now. Again, I sent out a text earlier for the ritual on Saturday. Tomorrow will be the cutoff date for the invite. Just want to make sure we have the official head count. I am aware of, up until this point, who will be there. But if you have not requested an invite and still think of coming, please try to make up your mind by tomorrow. Very important. It is a two-part ritual. Let me just put it as 2 parts to the ritual. I'll leave it there. All right. And just a quick reminder, though, and also I mentioned earlier, those that have contacted me for readings and consultations, remember the 22nd, I'm going to take about a 5-day break from it, from the 22nd till right before New Year's Eve. And then I'm going to take another couple of days after that. I have scheduled it, and I mentioned earlier, it is very tight right now. I do have spots from now until Sunday, Monday, but they're only certain times. So if you email me for a consultation or a reading over the next couple of days, I will just simply let you know what times are available. If it works with your schedule, fine. If not, we might have to wait to the following week or so to do it. So I just wanted to be clear on that because I'm to be honest, schedule is very, very tight packed, and I'm trying to get as many of them done, not to rush it because I like to spend the proper time and energy and focus when I'm working with people. I don't like to rush that. I don't believe there's something you can really rush as far as being focused. And not only would I be cheating myself, I wouldn't want to take that time, effort, and energy from somebody. But I do my best. All right. All right. So peace and greetings to everybody. If I didn't greet you personally. All right. I'm kind of going to just skip some of the personal comments or the talk that you guys are having amongst each other. I'll skip that. I will read a comment if it's something in relation to what we're talking about. All right. All right. I love that name. Ragui Louie. Love it. All right. Peace, brother Matthew Watson. Good to see you here again. All right. Looking for some questions. All right. All right, so here's a comment from Gypsy Goddess earlier. So Satan, Azazel, Set, one may say is the North Star, the red 5-point star, El Diablo. Yes, you can look at it in that perspective. But now, funny thing you point out is the North. Now, for all my Masonic travelers, right, what part of the laws do they say nothing takes place in because it represents darkness? The North, nothing happens in the North, especially North, the whole North quadrant, Northeast, the North in general. There's no station. There's no work is done in the North, which I find funny. That's because all of the chaos, right? Now, remember, a PEP. Why this is important with the North. Now, you will see in most rituals and workings done for Set, your altar is usually faced or set up in the North if you can do it. Because remember, there's 2 ways to look at Set and a PEP. Right? A PEP is actually, Set looks at a PEP as a manifestation of himself because that's why Set had to constantly slay a PEP. And he never, quote unquote, officially dies. He would have to slay him. And he constantly, what? In the coming forth by day, the 8th spell clearly says, I am reborn every morning, right? As a snake sheds its skin, what does it do? It grows new skin. It resurrects, right? Set looked at a PEP as a representation of himself. He had to destroy all of those things about himself that were holding him back. And he constantly knew those things would resurrect, but he constantly realized he would have to be master control over those things. What does this also represent in the story where you see when Ra was trying to constantly keep a PEP at bay, but he couldn't do it? This is what the story represents. Well, when you look at the concept of the North, right? All of the chaos or the PEP energy comes from that point of darkness. And the only thing that can keep it in order or make order out of the chaos is Set. Or that light that shines in the darkness is Set, that mindset, right? Hear that word, mindset. We use it all the time, right? You got to have a certain mindset to do something. You don't have the right mindset to be successful at. You don't have the right mindset to be a star basketball player. You think that shit is a coincidence? No. There's a reason why that word mind and set go together. There's a reason for that. Trust me. But yes, when you look at different attributes or titles, Satan meaning the adversary, Azazel, the one removed, describing again in relation to that story, Set, Satuk, Set, Seth, some will also, depending on the language that you're reading it from. The 5-pointed star or the pentagram, right? We also have in some of the mystery teachings the pentagram of Set. What's different between the pentagram of Set and the regular pentagram? And I'm just going to throw a little something at you. There is a difference. If you look at Baphomet, when you look at the 5-pointed star and you see the head of Baphomet in it, or some say represents Samael, right? You'll see the points touch the circle. If you look at a true pentagram of Set, the points don't touch the circle, right? Because there's a symbolicism or meaning to that. Because those 5 points of Set, which I'm not going to really get into that right now in depth, those 5 points of Set, it represents, again, the best way I'm going to describe it in simplistic terms, when the points are not touching the circle, it represents you as the adept always being in control. I'll get into that a little further down the road, but I'm going to throw the short version at you. Whereas it doesn't mean if you're using the pentagram with Samael and the points are hitting, because there's still a representation of that, or hitting the circle, but there is a difference. And I'm bringing that up in relation to the comment. So yes, you can look at it like that. The North Star, the Bull Umbos, as they call it, the thigh, right? That's all synonymous with some of the hidden mysteries of this deity that we call Set, most definitely. All right. Oni typed in. Okay, a lot of people have no interest in the science of energy, only how to extract with nothing to contribute. Well, that's a lot of people, unfortunately. Look, we all have our faults and shortcomings, and by all means, I'm not saying that I don't, because I do. I got a lot of problems, shortcomings that I got to constantly work on, just like everybody else. That's a reality. But the problem is, to your comment, that nothing to contribute. The problem, what I mean by that is, you got all these people out here. I mean, all these platforms and YouTube channels and Twitter and Facebook and all these different avenues. Everybody can point out the problem, but nobody can really refer to you to any solutions. How many more lectures are we going to listen to of what the cause and the problem of the human condition is, be it racism, be it whatever? We get that, but let's start talking. The contribution would be a solution. Because everybody's a genius on what the fucking problem is, but nobody got any solutions. And that's where I got an issue with the contribution problem. Now, the difference that I can speak for myself that separates those that know me over the years or have worked with me over the years, know the work that we do. And again, I don't need to put up a website or post for testimonials and all, because as I said, I'm not somebody that's just not the way I vibe or do things. The work speaks for itself. What I contribute and what I pride myself on contributing to those areas of solution is to guide you in the area of the work that you need to do for yourself. You'll do the work, but I can definitely assist in putting you in the right area so you can do the work. That's what I do. That's my contribution. I ain't going to do it for you, but I will get you in the area you need to be. So the change can come about, because the contribution can only come when the change starts with self. The problem is all these groups are promising you pie in the sky and unity. We must all come together. We must all come together, unify as one. We must bring our monies together, blah, 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 blah. Well, if this ain't unified when it comes to information-wise and spirituality, all that physical shit is non-existent. So there's a lot of talking. People got diarrhea and Diarrhea of the mouth is what I like to call it. All right. All right. Denoni types in talk to yourself and you'll channel your ancestors easily. Yeah. Like I said earlier, you are your ancestors, they are you. You can't worship something that you have the same blood running through your veins. That's crazy. You understand? So we got to stop. We got to get out of this mindset of worshiping something externally. It's ridiculous. Because remember, a true black adept understands one of the first most important principles. They one are always the ruler and controller of their universe and the governor of their spirituality. Once you remove yourself from that equation, you are not in control anymore. You now can be a victim. You now can be prey. You can now be subjective to be taken advantage of. That's a reality. So we never remove ourselves from that equation, right? Now, what else we got? Okay, so Threats One, and I hope I'm saying that name right. Okay, coming through the Prince Hall Masonic system, I was really taken back by how entrenched the church mindset remains when the symbolism says opposite. People need something to worship. All right, good. That's a very good point. Now, I myself, being a Master Mason, Shriner, the whole list goes on and on. Though my membership still active, I don't attend like I used to, but I keep my membership active. And as I mentioned before, my brother-in-law just finished his term serving as worshipful master of the lodge I belong to, Lodge 236 in Boynton Beach, Florida. I found, yes, Prince, you mentioned Prince Hall. I know a lot of Prince Hall brothers, number one. Number two, I came through FNAM, Free and Accepted Masonic Lodge. For those that don't know, let me explain briefly the differences, or self-created differences, I should say. And I had brothers that, crossed over from Prince Hall and came to our lodge, which is a complicated thing to do. They call it demit. If you want to demit, leave another lodge and go to another lodge. Depends on where you're coming from. It could be a very complicated process. For those that have done it or know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. Well, you have AF&AM, Ancient Free and Accepted Masonry. You might see this, AF&AM. What's the difference? FNAM, you have Prince Hall. You also have International, right? In essence, when you're dealing with what they call the Blue House, right? Which to become a Master Mason, you're talking about the first 3 degrees in the Blue House, which is the Entered Apprentice, the Fellowcraft, and the Master Mason degree. In essence, for the most part, the ritual of the degrees are pretty much the same. The process of it, though, is going to vary. In Prince Hall lodges, there's a lot of hazing that goes on. You're going to get your ass whooped. A lot of that can go on in the International Lodge. Doesn't go on so much in AF and AM. FNAM to an extent it does. Well, I went through both of those aspects. It can be severe hazing like a college fraternity. In addition, because some people read the Dunkin' Donuts ritual book, I call it, the Dunkin's Ritual, or they read books on masonry and they think that's what it is. Yeah, you might know a couple of the words from what you read. You might have an idea of the format of the degrees. It's not the same as going through the actual experience. Trust me when I tell you. Reading it is not the same thing. Trust me when I tell you, people. Unfortunately, you got people that think it is. Because they read a book on masonry, they think they know everything about Freemasonry now. To me, in my experience, I've gotten many beautiful things out of it. But as you describing, brother, I did see some of that religious aspect in some lodges that I visited. And I visited many lodges over the years in different states. I've been over in the Bahamas, which is a whole different ballgame, in the Caribbean, etc. But what I have found, I was fortunate. My lodge to this day still has an esoterical society. So a lot of the brothers in my lodge, they're not really religious. Prince Hall, I have found, as you've said, and I know many brothers in the Prince Hall Lodge. Yes, they come off as very religious. Now, if you also know some of the racism that exists in Masonry, some states don't recognize Prince Hall lodges. They consider them, quote unquote, clandestine. Or Florida is a state that does not recognize Prince Hall lodges. New York does, New Jersey does, etc., which in itself is a bunch of racist bullshit. We have actually, to my knowledge, in our lodge now 4 brothers that demitted over to our lodge, but went through hell trying to do it, and literally just had to get to the point and leave because it becomes a money game. That's a whole nother story. I don't want to get into that. A lot of it's money, a lot of it's politics. You got cliques in some of these lodges, unfortunately. Some of the older heads don't want to let the power structure go. I've seen a lot of that shit. Just like anything else in life, there's cliques. But the beauty of it is, from knowing what I know now, I go back. That's what I mean when I say you must reteach yourself. I go back now through all the degrees I went through, and I put them into perspective, and I look at them differently from when I went through them years ago. I don't look at it the same way. Because remember, the religion that's still there when you're dealing with Freemasonry, because it's supposed to, quote unquote, deal with the mysteries, the building of King Solomon's temple. But a real Mason knows when he walks in the lodge, and I've talked about this, the temple you're working on is yourself. So when you walk into the lodge and you look to the east and you see the 2 ashlars on the left and the right, the rough ashlar and the smooth ashlar. Well, you come into the lodge as a rough ashlar, right? Your objective is to become the smooth ashlar. You're trying to protect, you're trying to perfect those things about you that need correcting. So the real temple you're working on, it's a lot of, there's an esoterical aspect of Masonry, and then there's the exoteric or the literal aspect. Well, those that don't understand the esoterical or hidden sciences of Freemasonry, those are your religious Masons, and there's a lot of them. So I'm trying to explain it as you made a comment, brother, and I'm trying to get, I know you know this if you're a Mason, but I'm trying to get other people that may not be familiar with Masonry to try to understand it. So I found, long story short, over the years, one, it depends on the lodge. And I get this email all the time. I'm thinking about becoming a maid, blah. Okay. If you're thinking about it for the experience of something you really want to do, go for it. But I've always said this, visit a few lodges before you commit to a lodge. Because the worst thing you want to do is go through the whole process of getting initiated and you don't like the lodge. Now, most lodges offer, they do it pretty much, most lodges meet twice a month, right? They'll have their regular meeting, and usually somewhere they incorporate before those meetings an open social dinner where prospective new candidates can come, check out the lodge, talk to some of the brothers, get the feel, which is a good thing to do. And I would suggest, if anybody's interested, even if you're a female and want to be an Eastern Star, I would suggest you visit a few lodges and vibe with the people, because the worst thing you can do is commit yourself to a lodge that you don't like and find that shit out later. Now, granted, nothing's guaranteed. Don't get me wrong. You can't, nothing's foolproof, because it might start out good at first and then you don't like it. And then you don't want to have to go through the process of demitting. That's not an easy process. They tend not to like to let members go. It's a whole paperwork fuckery between the local lodge and the grand lodge. It's politics. That's the best way I could describe it. Part of it's money and part of it's just politics. But I definitely can grasp and relate to your statement for sure. Yeah, and like you said, they do inject religion. There's a lot. Look, there's a lot of religion injected into it. Each degree's got a particular biblical verse as the theme of the degree, but then they say it's not a religion. It's not a religion in the sense because in the lodge, you don't call upon the creator by a specific name. He's referred to as the grand architect of the universe, right? That's because, I'm just saying what they say on the surface. That's because they say that an individual of any religion or faith can be a Mason as long as you have, quote unquote, you acknowledge the existence of a supreme being, right? Sounds good on the surface, right? And they also say when you take your oath, it doesn't have to. You might read in the Dunkin' Donuts, they say, they use the Bible you take your oath on, right? But they say the law or the volume of the law that you take your oath on could be any holy book part of your culture. Now, I've never seen, I'm not saying it hasn't happened, but for an example, you can be a Hindu if you want to take your oath on the Bhagavad Gita. That's your choice. You could be a Muslim if you want to take your oath on the Quran. That's your choice. So there's more dynamics to it, but I definitely, one of the reasons why probably to this day, or one of the reasons back then, I should say, I left, I made up my mind not to be active like I used to be. Now I'll go once in a while, because like I said, my brother-in-law, I actually brought him into my lodge. My brother-in-law, he's very active with it. It's something he enjoys, power to him. But I'll occasionally go, but that's about it. I just don't feel like there's really anything there for me. All right. All right. Double R typed in earlier. Peace to Mandela Born. Double R mentioned earlier, I think being a goddess means that I have, this is a good definition. Okay. I think being a goddess means that I have control of my own path in life. I am a creator in every sense of the word. I have the power to create and destroy. Very good. And I take accountability for everything. Now, remember, there's something I had talked about in past videos, deconstruction and reconstruction. Right? Remember, in order for something to be created, something has to be destroyed. Right? When we apply this to self, what does this mean? Very simple. You as the destroyer and the creator, you must destroy all those things about yourself that are holding you back. Your habits, personality characteristics, some of your lazy, shifty ways. You might have to correct attributes about yourself. Maybe bad temper. You may have attributes, too many attributes like jealousy, pride, envy. All of these things. You know what things need to be destroyed, and you know what things need to be created. Now, if you go into some of the videos that I posted up, about the rituals that we do, there's one image we always keep on. You'll see a plasma ball with a Grim Reaper image, right? And I'm saying that because of what you typed in. I keep that on the altar for every ritual we do as a reminder of that. Because the purpose of doing a lot of these rituals and work is to destroy those things about ourselves that are holding us back. That's the purpose of doing work. Remember, ritualistic work, whether it's individually or collectively, is done solely for the purpose to transform, change, and evolve. You don't just do rituals because it's fun or it's cool or it's hip or whatever the fuck. You do it with a purpose. And the purpose and the intent for doing these rituals and work is to bring about the transformation, the change, and the evolution. So yes, the destroyer of worlds that you see in a lot of those videos, and it will be on the altar on this ritual on Saturday, represent that. That's what it represents. So yes, good definition. All right. Let's see what else we got here. All right. So, all right, another comment by Gypsy God of Santa has a lot of energy this time of year. Lol, all these people here giving their energy for free. We got Santa, big red mailbox right here. Yeah, I mean, so here's the interesting thing about that, right? And it's funny because I love when this time of the year comes about because one, as I said in, I think it was last video or the video before, fuck that. I enjoy Christmas. I don't give a fuck what anybody says. I love all the conscious, super conscious, pro-black, spiritual, whatever you want to call it, who get into all the rhetoric, Santa, holiday, this and that, it represents European enslavement and blah, blah, blah. There's magic in that shit I said earlier. Look at the colors, number one, right? Then I've heard this one before. This one kills me. Oh yeah, if you take the words, you just the letter Santa means Satan. Santa, that's not what it means. Okay, I know you like to dig hard. I know I know you like to look hard for something, but I told you, it just means the word saint. It's a Spanish word, something like Santa Muerte, no different, right? But there's magic in itself to show you, just like you can take any mythology and create something so powerful that stands to this day, just like Walt Disney World. I mentioned this before in past videos. Millions of people travel each year. We're not talking just little kids. And when Walt Disney started, man, been a minute, what, 30s, 40s, if I'm not mistaken? I could be off on that. And look, to this day, you still call it what you want. But there's an individual that tapped into the power and the creativity of his subjective realm and made it a reality on his objective realm, regardless if you agree with it or what you think about it and don't think about it. That's irrelevant. But to show you the power of the mind, Walt Disney was able to bring to life characters that he had created in his mind, and he's long gone and dead. And to this day, it only is becoming greater and stronger. So that was his magic. That was a great manifestation of his magic. And again, you don't have to like it. I couldn't give a fuck. I'm just telling you for what it is. But again, what mark, I always say this, if you left tomorrow, right? One principle we try to embrace on this path. If you left here tomorrow, can you say you've left your mark on this world and feel like you've contributed something? It's not a question I want you to answer out and openly. Ask yourself that. Do you feel like you've left that mark, that influence? That's all I'm saying. All right, what else we got? Right. Double R types, and I will admit my journey started in the conscious community. A lot of us did. Mine too. I started out with Islam. Okay, worked my way up from Islam, went to that, into Egyptology, the whole nine. I'm sure a lot of us have come from that. So you're definitely not alone. And I'm grateful for the initial introduction to waking up, but I'm beyond that now. It was helpful at the time, and that's the key. It was helpful at the time. It did wake us up, and I want to address this. I'm glad you bring this point up, because I don't regret, I'll say, yeah, obviously it'd have been nice if I knew now. It would have been nice to know then what I know now. I could have probably saved myself a lot of time. But look at the flip side of it. It was pertinent that you went through that I went through that anybody else, because you can now look back and reflect, because you have the experience. So you now know, because see, if you didn't have that experience, it'd be tough to go back and readdress a lot of that. So when I'm speaking on it, just like anybody else has gone through it, I'm not speaking on it just randomly. I'm speaking on it because at one time I was a hotepper, etc. You understand? I was in that mindset. But I started to realize there was more. And I'm glad you used the word, the initial introduction to waking up. That's how I looked at it. It was the initial introduction. But then when I started to see it was a bunch of talking, what I mean by that is, like, we're talking about how great Egypt and Africa was and how great we used to be. But I'm trying to figure out, well, how can we become that now? Like, I'm not trying to, worship Osiris like these motherfuckers. I'm trying to become Osiris. That's the difference on this path. So that's when I came to the realization and said something's missing. But it is what it is. Yeah, rest in peace, to Dr. Delbert Blair, no doubt. And to me, Dr. Delbert Blair touched on, and I don't think he got the respect personally. This is just my opinion. I'm not speaking for anybody. It's just funny how when he passed, wasn't really talked about. I didn't see no outpouring of support for him. I didn't see any footage of anybody going to, his well, they couldn't because it was more private. But you didn't see any videos or footages mentioning on a wide scale level honoring him when he passed away. I'm gonna be honest with you. you heard a little here and there, and I don't know, it was kind of disappointing to me, but I know part of the reason they didn't really draw a lot of attention to him. Yes, he's been on the bill with some of these conscious speakers in the past over the years, but I never really thought he got the attention he should have got because he talked about some subjects that people were afraid to talk about. And I don't think some people wanted to address it. And again, I mentioned before, I love a lot of things he teaches. I learned a lot from him. His science on ancient Egypt. I mean, I got all his, just about majority of all his lectures on CD. I mean, you can pull a lot of them up on YouTube. Learned a lot from him in a short period of time. But yeah, man, you got me thinking about him now. But yeah, rest in peace. Well, I should say rest in power. That's what I like to say, rest in power. All right. Yeah, double R. Thelema, right? Crowley, that's do what thy will is the law, right? That's the principle. Enforce your will as a black magician, right? That's one of the principles that we utilize to be successful on this path, most definitely. There's a good point by Mandela Bourne. If you stay in any so-called conscious community for any length of time and honest with yourself, you're going to have to stop blaming others and self-reflect. That's when the real work starts. And I 100% agree with that. I don't think enough of people do it. They get caught up in what I like to call being a part of the Mickey Mouse Club, right? Everybody wants to be a part of a club, right? Everybody wants to be with the in crowd. Everybody wants to do what everybody's doing. To me, the quote unquote conscious community has become very commercialized, right? And now you have people marketing shit to the conscious community. And as I mentioned in past videos going back several months, that whole Colin Kaepernick thing, it's just funny how people kill me like, oh shit, Nike came out and got his back. Nike didn't come out and get his back for shit. Nike saw the opportunity. The money that was to be made, they didn't give a fuck about no damn Colin Kaepernick. Do your research on Nike. They've donated millions of dollars to Donald Trump's campaign. They support the Republican Party. I'm just bringing this up, not to bring up politics, but do your research. They didn't sign Colin Kaepernick to do that commercial or sign to the contract. They just signed him to because they sympathize or they're empathetic with the cause. They saw dollar signs. Keep it real. It amazes me how these conscious fools, yeah, Nike supports. Nike don't support no motherfucking movement. See, Nike realized, look, we're not just gonna market ourselves when it comes to melanated folks. We're not gonna just market to hip hoppers and urban dress and urban fashion. There's a new marketing tool out there that a lot of these companies are now marketing to. It's called a conscious community. Okay, it's a whole new market because these are more intelligent people that are willing to spend their money, right? So it's at the end of the day, it's always about politics and money. Don't fool yourself. You understand? It's always about politics and money when it comes to shit like when it comes to shit like that. All right, what else we got? Kids see your spirit, little buggers. I agree. Yeah, double or green, yellow, and black and white, they are precious. And it's like, yeah, that's funny shit. Talking about the children, right? Earlier when I was right. Well, here's a fact. Only types of so many people don't know the movie Lion King is about Asar, Set, and Horus, and the so-called evil brother, aka Set. That's true. You see that story obviously repeat itself over and over. The Set Horus story, be it with Cain and Abel, Enki and Enlil. As I said before, understand when you're reading those quote unquote biblical stories, they constantly repeat themselves over and over. Different cultures, as it got passed down, they just changed the names and the titles of the individuals that fit their language. So the name or the attribute might have changed, but the story was still the same. Now, here's a little fact trivia you may or may not know about since you bring up The Lion King. Does anybody know what movie, if you go ask the creator of Lion King, does anybody know what inspired the creation of that movie? There was a certain movie, and you look this up, what I'm about to tell you, that inspired the creation of The Lion King. Anybody know what movie that was? You probably would never guess. Some of just who know your shit, you might know. I'll give you guys 5 seconds. I'll see if anybody put it in down, and I'm gonna look at the time, see if you're cheating. So I didn't get the answer. I'm gonna get the answer. So if anybody typed in after the time I get the answer, then you didn't know the answer. So it's 9:15. I'm gonna give you the answer. Coming to America. The character that James Earl Jones played, the guy that created Lion King, that was his inspiration in creating the actual movie itself. Most people don't know that, but because he played that African king, you know, if you look at what he wore, the big lion's head around his, but go do the research, you'll see. I didn't even know that. When I found that out, I thought that was pretty interesting. But anyway, just a little fact trivia, a little movie trivia there for you. Good movies. What's some good movies I watched lately? Anything good that I did? Well, I watched Backtrace, which was a new Stallone movie. Just came out. It was pretty good. I watched last night John Travolta's, one of his last movies he did Speed Kills, which is a true story about a guy that moved from Jersey to Miami and became a championship boat racer and speedboat builder, but he got involved with drugs and a whole bunch of other shit. Good movie. If you ain't seen it, go see it. Just thinking of some movies that I saw lately. All right, so what else we got? All right. Yeah, that might be something. Ego Atlanta said do a breakdown on Economist 219 cover. That could be something possible for the future. I don't really too much. I know some people have requested that. I've been on other platforms. Brother Sharif, who has his show, that's one of his areas of specialty. So I've been on his blog talk show and talking about some topics like that. I don't really do that here, but it's something possible we could do down the road. Quintus Ferguson, what is the best text or way to get started on left-hand path? Good question. And people that have asked this question before, and I've said this in past videos, to me, a good place to begin for a beginner, just my personal suggestion, because I think step one is to always get a good grasp and understanding of your subjective and objective. And to me, the 7 Hermetic Principles of Tahuti is the best place to start. When you understand those principles, it's going to help you moving forward to grasp everything afterwards. I always suggest, to me, and I'm saying that from my experience, it helped me out greatly, and it's something I constantly go back and look at. Some know it as the Kabbalion, not the Kabbalah. I want to make that clear. Some people get confused. You have something called the Kabbalah, which we all know what the Kabbalah is. Then there's also a term used for the 7 Hermetic Principles called the Kabbalion, Kybalion. So if you Google the Kabbalion by the 3 initiates, which is the 7 Hermetic Principles of the Tahuti, which is the original work, there's many different translations, same thing, but many different breakdowns of it. I find that one gives you thorough explanations and breakdowns. I would definitely start there and then work your way out. That's a great starting point, in my opinion, and from my experience. Okay. Sorry, watching this. All right, so what else we got? Okay, Keisha Thomas types in hello. Does Set represent Saturn? Also, any type of reptilian figures? Now, it depends on what doctrine, spiritual system. There are some organizations that have tried to make that connection. When you look at the representation of Set, there's always been this mystery of, one, his physical appearance. What animal is that? Some have said, it's got the face of a bull. Some have likened it to a face of a boar. Different attributes, but there's never been any clear identification of the deific mass that Set represents, and there's a reason for that. The reason for that is you can't put a title on what Set specifically represents because it embodies so many different aspects. That was done for a reason. So the mystery of his physical appearance, I'm talking about the mask. Now remember, don't get caught up in that because that's a symbol. It symbolizes something, right? Now, yes, they do say as far as the connection with Saturn in some doctrines, yes, you will say that. They will connect that with Saturnalia because of the energy that it represents. Now, as far as any reptilian type of figures, now, when you get into ancient Egypt, remember when you go look up the term OGDOAD, and Dr. Blair, if I can remember the video, he talked about the ziggurat, the step pyramids, and the Ogdoads, right? Who are the creatures that came from the water. On some of the stelas, and he mentioned on some of the ziggurats and the step pyramids, they have these designs of some of these reptilian type of creatures. Now, I'm telling people to do their research. I don't want you to take what I'm saying for face value. So there's been that connection via the Ogdoads, right? In ancient Egypt. This is something you can look up. The OGDOADS. Damn, I'll get the video if somebody wants to email. I can't recall the video of the lecture he did offhands. Now, even if you go back to show you that connection's been there, you can go back to the Dogon of Mali, right, in West Africa, right? The Dogon claim that reptilian water type creatures came to the surface, and in exchange for intermingling with their females, they would give them sacred information, how the universe was created, the planet, all this hidden esoteric knowledge. So they have people there. You can pull this up. You do your research. You come to your own conclusion. They have these people called the ostrich people that have these webbed feet. You can pull this up on Google. You'll see it. And they claim that these are direct descendants of the byproduct of these water creatures mixing with humans, right? And every 60 years, or what they call a Saji, they reenact. Every 60 years, the Dogon have this great feast or ritual called the Baldo Rite, BALDO, Baldo Rite, to commemorate this. This is recorded in their culture. So I'm saying there's been that connection there. In my research and study, I see that there's some evidence for that to be a possibility. I don't know if I fully 100% embrace it, because sometimes I've found that there's more of a connection made than it actually is. So I would, suggest you do your research on that. But yes, it does. That stuff is recorded and logged in them cultures, including ancient Egypt. So yes, I have seen some people correlate the connection with that as far as the reptilian. I don't know if I'm fully sold on that though. All right. The Rogue Titan, love the name, cool name. Appreciate the continued science and occult methodologies constantly being dropped, brother. Salute. Appreciate that, brother. Thank you. Oh, that's you, brother Phil? Alone me? Change the damn name, trying to be all secretive and shit. All right, cool. What's going on? I was wondering because I was like, oh, who that is. All right, so Ego Atlantis, yes, Set is Saturn. Yes, there is a connection there. Just depends, again, on what ideology you're coming from. Now, on the left-hand path, I don't really think there's a strong focus on that. There's more of the focus on, the things that we were talking about earlier. But again, if you incorporate that into your that's fine. That's your choice. If some of those concepts resonate with you and you make a connection with it, that's fine. That's your choice. But yeah, there is connections there that you can see in different dogmas and doctrines. Okay, Wacky J just got off of work. Okay, that was at 8:42. Okay, cool. 33. How do you join Saturday's ritual? Well, I'm not sure where you are located. The ritual takes place here in North Fort Lauderdale. Where we do the ritual is right on the borderline of where Palm Beach County ends and Fort Lauderdale begins. So quite simply, the way if you would like to participate in the ritual, you would just send us an email. I can send you the flyer with the ritual, send an email. You can request an invite, and we would just have a brief conversation with you to kind of, make sure it's a good fit. See what I mean by a good fit is to see, your experience and, where you're at. It doesn't matter if you're, a newbie or somebody that's been working for a while. We just want to make sure we're all on the same page. So that's it. You basically request an invite. We have a brief conversation, and then I let you know what it is you need to do for the ritual as far as dress code, and if there's anything you need to bring, a tool that you will need for the work or the ritual. That's basically simply it. It's that simple. So again, don't know where you're located. If you can't get to us for this one, we pretty much do one group ritual a month. And it is usually, we try to do it pretty much, it's usually the last weekend of every month for the most part. This time we're doing it only because of the holidays and travel. We're doing this one probably 1 week earlier than we would. And we're doing it on a Saturday instead of a Friday. That's because we have some people that are traveling and are going to be here that day as opposed to Friday. So this month is a little bit off. And actually this month, usually in the month of December, we don't really usually do an open public ritual. This originally was going to be something just for us locally here, but since I just figured I'd put it out there and some people are still going to be coming. So that's basically how you can get, if you want to participate, just request an invite. It's a good comment by Brother Phil. Lamni. You said before, we don't know what happens at death, aka the process, correct? But we do know, as we've had many lives just forgot. What do you think about that? And that's true. When I say we don't know the exact, process, what I mean by that is, even though we live, like you say, good point, we lived many different lives, but the process that we went through, obviously, it wasn't the same. So what I mean when I say the many different lives we've lived, the process we've transformed in those lives wasn't identically the same process we went through each time. So when you make the statement, which is a very good statement, we forgot. So what I'm trying to say is, yes, we have forgot, but can we get that recollection back? So what I'm saying is, once we get back into that state, we do have those recollections. Can you gain that recollection here? Most definitely. Now, when I'm saying that on the surface, addressing a lot of these people that over the years are trying to teach about death and how it happens in correlation to using the opening in the mouth ceremony, the Tibetan Book of the Dead, or referring to these texts. So when I'm saying that, I was more or less addressing that process as some people pass it along religiously. And then I kind of connected it to, that's why most people gravitate or stay locked in a religion, is because fear of death. So I said it's the fear of not knowing that process exactly. Now, what I was referring to in essence is exactly the methodology of how it's going to happen. It doesn't mean we can't understand the transition process, because we have the science to understand, especially when you're astrally traveling and you're doing work where you are vibrating outside a person, place, or thing, and you're starting to work with the astral/spiritual realm, no doubt. You start to understand that process, but that becomes personal and subjective. So yes, you can gain that knowledge while you are still, quote unquote, in human form, living on this realm. And that's what removes the fear. And remember, I said, working with the death current, when we're working with a spiritual path, whether it's Santa Muerte, necromancy, the ancestors, spirits of the dead, voodoo, that all connects us to the death current. And the death current really represents transformation, evolution, and change. It's not just about doing work and rituals at the cemetery, skulls and graveyard dirt. That's part of it. That's part of the imagery and the ritualistic work. But One, when you're connected to the current of death, one, the fear subsides. You understand the process. Two, the most important thing, it brings constant transformation, evolution, and change. That's the key. That's how I told people, when you're working with the spirits of the dead or working with the quote unquote death current, you know you're locked in and are successful when you're seeing constant growth and change. If not, you're just doing a bunch of dark rituals and it's all gloomy doomy. That's all. It don't mean anything else. But that's an excellent point. So hopefully that sheds a little more clarity on it. Okay, Mandela Born. Kendrick, all right. K. Edwards, that's you. Guys changing names and shit, going incognito. What the fuck's going on, man? All right, good to see you, brother. Peace. And that's a good point. I've created energies, alumni. I've created energies to work for me and to work against me. I, by definition, have cursed myself. And that's it, taking responsibility. Now, regardless of what that was for, I'm sure there was more in depth to that, but that's the reality. You know, you created it. You understand what I'm saying? You created it. So it was your responsibility, and it was your responsibility to do whatever you needed to do to fix it. Okay. Keon Felder, peace. Does this also carry Leviathan's energy? Not sure what that's in relation to. Are we talking, maybe you could type something in later down. What book can I work with Set? Are you talking about Set? I mean, the Leviathan energy, yeah, when you're dealing with Luciferianism or you're dealing with certain aspects of magic, I work with the Leviathan energy because of what Leviathan represents, that serpent energy, right? That deals with a whole, I mean, you just actually gave me an idea to do maybe we need to do a whole video in class on working what Leviathan really is, and also remove the spooky religious shit out of it, because we know the definition of Leviathan in the Bible and how religious people portray it is negative. But Leviathan is a very transforming energy too, when you understand the power and how intense it is working with that magic. And that can be invoked in many different ritualistic ways and can be adjusted to self to work for growth and transformation on a multitude of levels. But that might be something we do down soon. So you just kind of gave me an idea. Now, as far as good books to work with Set, to first understand, this is an excellent book. If you came in late, I pointed this book out here. It's actually called Set, the Outsider, Set the Outsider. And it's written by Judith Page and Don Webb. Another good book is The Seven Faces of Darkness by Don Webb, a very good book. The Necrominion, another good book to understand a lot of ritualistic and magic practices. The Necrominion book, Egyptian Sethanic magic. It gets into a whole breakdown of all the Egyptian deities with the focal point or the center point of origin, essence being Set. Now, Charles Pace, even though Michael W. Ford is the author, but he basically got permission from Charles Pace, who was actually considered himself a high priest of Set and wrote that book. So he basically put all of Charles Pace's writings together in one book. A lot of great rituals and work in this book. If you don't have this book, I definitely recommend you get that. That would be some areas that I would start. There's another classic. It's hold on, Set, the God of Chaos. You can actually get, hold on. That is an excellent book too. Hold on one second. Let me get the exact title. Hold on one second. Let me pull that up. I just want to get the right title. It's a really good book. Been around for a long time. Hold on. Just let me pull it up. I'm just drawing a blank on it. I don't know why. Something I read a while back. Seth, the God of Confusion. a second. Just want to make sure I got that right. That's what it is. Set, God of confusion. It might be Seth. They'll spell it like that sometimes. Hold on. Just want to make sure. Yeah, Seth. Yeah, they type it in Seth. Seth, the God of Confusion, is another excellent book to understand the archetype set and what it represents. I would start with some of those books for you, Emperor Firearm. Okay. What else we got? Hold on. Okay. Alumni, aka Brother Phil, thank you for this. We all appreciate it. Much love, man. Well, I appreciate all you guys too that come to the channel and support. I appreciate it. And again, I do this because it's just what I love to do. That's it. I appreciate it. Good comment by Alumni. Love and hate are the strongest emotions. You know what it reminds me of? Remember that scene in Do the Right Thing with Radio Raheem when he was giving that breakdown? Love and hate. Go back and watch that and look at that scene and what he's saying. But when you see, this is what I'm saying. These are all ways to reteach and reprogram your subconscious. And knowing, like, now, every time I see that now, there's a hidden meaning to that. It's kind of what you're talking about here. The opposite ends on the same spectrum. So in a sense, they are the same, maybe just different frequencies. That deals with the doctrine of vibration and rhythm, because everything vibrates at different frequencies. And that's what leads one to come to the conclusion on how they perceive things. Because two people can look at the same thing and perceive it entirely different based on the vibration and frequency and how they're registering that perception. So when somebody looks at something good or bad or hate or love, they're looking at that based on perception and how they're perceiving it. Because two people can look at the same thing and one can say that's bad and the other person can say that's good. But that's the way they're perceiving it and how they apply it to themselves. So I'll go back to that scene and Do the Right Thing with Radio Raheem. And he was like, love, when he had the four-finger jammies on. He said, and then, that hate comes about. There's science behind all that shit, man. Science. Yep, emotion, energy, and motion. Yep. Okay, Alumni say, check out Welcome to the Mount. I think you sent me an email. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet. I definitely need to check that out. I haven't had a chance. Matter of fact, I'm going to put that on my list after this, see if I can at least get it set up. Because I got some good AKA movie apps, man. I can find streams for anything. Gypsy Gossip. For those who can't hold a book in their life, depend on it. There's a great audio here on YouTube. Yeah, you can. Yeah, that's true. There is a YouTube audio of the Kabbalah. And if you are one of those people that are not a book reader, good point. All right, what else we got? Oh, look who decides to show up at 9:21. Look who's awake. The moderator comes in. How convenient. It just comes in when we're done. No, just kidding. Good to see Sonya here. All right, I think we are at the end, people. Just making sure I got to most of your questions and comments. Yeah, if I'm saying your name, hopefully I'm pronouncing it right. Keon, am I saying that right? Keon Felder. Hopefully I'm not butchering it. I'm glad you brought that up. I think that's what we'll do in the next one. I bet it's funny because probably about 6-7 months ago, I wanted to do a whole video on the breakdown, working with the Leviathan and energy. And that deals with working with a lot of Luciferian magic too. Now, I also want to point this out. If you have the book by Richard K. Page on Luciferianism, if you are practicing Luciferian and you work ritualistic magic for Luciferianism, as you know, Christmas Day is one of the most powerful rituals you can do in kind of engulfing yourself in the Luciferian energy, because we know that's dealing with the solstice. That's the, darkest day of the year when dealing with solar, we're dealing with light and darkness. There's a whole ritual in there. You can adjust it to see fit. I would recommend, if you are practicing Luciferian like myself, I will be doing that ritual on the 25th. As we know, the 21st being the solstice, my OTO lodge is doing a solstice ritual. And in that solstice ritual is included the hymn of Pan, the deity Pan, who is a great archetype to work with during this solstice. So if you are one of those individuals that incorporate the timing and planning of your magic with the planetary movements and the solstice, which in my opinion is a good thing to do. Remember, we have that coming up in a few days. Again, if you do Luciferian magic and you do work with that Leviathan energy, and Luciferian magic incorporates a lot of the elements, and it incorporates a lot of personal alchemy. It incorporates a lot of aspect of the microcosm and the macrocosm. Because if you remember that ritual I gave you on that website that I was leading people to a few months ago, Order Luciferi, that whole ritual deals with the elements and in connection with yourself. It deals with the real esoteric breakdown of earth, wind, air, fire, water, etc., in relation to activating those enlightening energies, or quote unquote, or forces. So I'm saying that to all my practicing Luciferians. You know what time of the year it is. You know really what the 25th represents. Now, the reason why I was joking earlier about Santa, because there's look people, there's hidden scientists and so much shit. We get caught up in the rhetoric of it, but we're not looking at the bigger picture. So, but yeah, most definitely. All right, what else we got? Okay, cool. So Kay, I would Mandel once saw your video about changing name. I was reading the Black Ship book and grabbed it from the Pandemonium Mandel. That's cool. Yeah, Pandemonium Mandel and the Demons of the Black Sun. That's a whole nother story. Only Leviathan is that huge sea serpent. Well, in religion, yeah. It's a lot more, though. It's a lot more of what Leviathan represents. We're going to do a video on that. All right, peace out to Gypsy Goddess. Doom McCarran, don't be a pan demon. Yeah, Pan. That's if you know your science, a great deity to activate during the winter solstice. The hymn of Pan. If you're not familiar with the hymn of Pan, it's actually a hymn that Crowley wrote. So if you're interested in learning about that, you can Google it. You might, if you have some books on Crowley, you might have it in one of his books. And during the winter solstice, and some of the ritualistic work, and again, I am a member of an OTO lodge also, which I've mentioned in the past. I belong to Swirl and Star Lodge here in Fort Lauderdale, who, by the way, the Grand Master of that lodge, which I don't know if most people are aware of or not, is James Wasserman. And I've referred to some of his books. James Wasserman is actually the founder of Tahuti Lodge, OTO Lodge in New York. He now lives here in Florida. He travels the world writing books. He's been on the Discovery Channel, the History Channel. There's a famous show on the occult where they actually filmed one of the rituals he did invoking Tahuti. Very interesting ritual. It was on the History Channel. You can pull that up. I think you can even pull it up on YouTube. He, again, travels the country and speaks frequently. He is the Grand Master over the lodge that I belong to. I refer to a great book that he wrote, The Assassins, the Militia of Heaven. And if you want to really understand the assassin order or Eastern mysticism, a great book. He breaks down how the assassins work black magic. They were kind of like a Sufi mystical order that practiced black magic. They dealt with the dark arts, which is a path that I like to incorporate in some of my work too. Matter of fact, those that did the initiation we did last year, which we're getting ready to do, and find out who is interested in getting initiated into that order of darkness and chaos, which is a long ritual, and it's not for the weak. It's for the strong-minded and an individual that is really, 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 desirous to be on this path. It deals with a lot of those Eastern mysticism principles. In that particular ritual, you will see a lot of elements incorporated: Freemasonry, Sufism, list goes on and on. You will also see a lot of the left-hand path Egyptian magical practices in that ritual, etc. You will see some OTO influence in that ritual. It's a ritual that was put together, that was written, that we created here, by the way. A very powerful ritual. We are getting ready to offer that early next year. Well, when I say next year, in a few months, really, but you know what I mean when I say next year. But yeah, the hymn of Pan. You can pull it up. As only said, yes, you can also pull it up on YouTube. Again, it was something that Crowley had wrote. All right, people. I think that looks like that's gonna wrap it up. I don't see any more questions. I think we're gonna call real quick, because Tuesday is Christmas Day. I forgot to address this in the beginning of the video. And I'll wait a minute or two. If anybody has any more questions, this will be your last opportunity. I'm about to wrap it up. But because Tuesday is Christmas Day, we'll not be shooting a video on Tuesday. So what I'm looking to possibly do, Monday's no good, more than likely Thursday evening, looking to shoot a video. So I'll put a notification out so you won't see anything on Tuesday. I will be busy with family and friends, chowing down on some Christmas grub, chilling with the fam and all that good shit. Be looking forward to my casada cake from Doris's Italian Market. Great place. If you're ever down here in Florida, if you're from the Northeast, such as myself, being from New York, it's the closest you can get to real, authentic Italian food, bakery, the whole nine. Looking forward to my casada cake. So I'll be busy, people. Hold on. Just looking at all my damn notifications. I'll check that shit later. All right, let me see the date, because my mind is not focused now. Probably somebody has already looked at it and got the motherfucking date while I'm over here fumbling for it. All right. That would be the 27th. All right, so won't be on the 25th, which is next Tuesday, obviously. So I'm looking to come back on and do a video on Thursday, December 27th. I'll put a notification out for it. And then the following week, I will go back to the regular schedule. Shouldn't be a problem. Or maybe New Year's Day. We might have to do 2 Thursdays after this, just for that 2 weeks. And I like to keep Tuesday night as the regular night set, which I've been doing for a while now. So I just wanted to throw that out there. But again, I'll put a notification out. That'll be so no video next Tuesday. We'll do a video on Thursday evening. Maybe Wednesday, but I'll put a notification out. It won't be Tuesday though, all right? Other than that, people, it's been real. Guys, enjoy the rest of your evening. And if you do celebrate Christmas, Merry Christmas to you. Enjoy your holiday. Enjoy your time with your family. Don't be trying to get all conscious, cooned out. See, Santa Claus represents the oppression. Enjoy your fucking holiday. Chill with the fam. Have some good food. If you watch sports, it's going to be a lot of, got basketball all day on Christmas Day. I think they got about six games on. So if you're a basketball fan, Christmas Day you're going to be in heaven, man. Starts like at noon and it runs all the way to the West Coast games at night. So it's a fun time of the year. You got basketball, you got football, you got family, you got friends, you got food, the kids. Enjoy it, man. Go out. You know, I know here in where I live here in Florida, in this area, they do Christmas. You know, they do it big. If you're in the North, enjoy it, man. Have your fun, man. Everybody enjoy your Christmas. Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Chanukah, whatever floats your boat, because you know everybody's politically correct. Last thing I wanted to add, I don't know if you guys see that song. You guys remember that classic song, "Baby, It's Cold Outside," right? Everybody remembers that song. They had some big shit circulating about a week or so ago, how they demanded that song be removed from radio play because it promotes date rape. You believe this shit? You want to protest something? Go fucking protest homeless vets or some shit. But anyway, fuck that. I love Christmas carols, Christmas tunes, all that shit. Enjoy it, people. Peace. I'll see you in a couple weeks.